Hi, I'm Leena Rao. Welcome to our Ask a VC show where we put VCs in the hot seat. I am joined by Mayfield Fund Managing Director, Navin Chaddha. Welcome, Navin.
It's a pleasure being here.
I want to go into your bio just for a little bit before we start. Navin is a serial entrepreneur turned VC. You founded VXstream while at Stanford, which was then acquired by Microsoft and became the foundation for Windows Media. And at Mayfield, you focus on consumer, enterprise, and energy tech investments. Some of your investments include Appcelerator, Brighter, Cloud Velocity, Fab. I'm a big Fab fan. Poshmark, among many, many others. So thank you so much for joining us. We had an amazing set of questions sent by our readers, so I'm going to just go into those right away. The first one is about healthcare, and which is like a hot topic right now. And the question is, VCs seem to be increasingly focused on healthcare and empowering patients to become consumers of their medical care. Do you, and of course the fund, feel that this is a promising area to invest in?
It absolutely is. We believe consumerization of health, where you don't have to worry about FDA, you don't have to worry about insurance, and with Obamacare, where more and more things can move to self-pay, it's a great area to invest. And some of the trends we are seeing, one big trend is self-quantification, where people are buying cloud-connected devices like smart wristwatch, smart wristbands, and they're able to measure the vital signs and take meaningful insights based on that. So one of our company's bases is a pioneer in the smartwatch space. Similarly, consumers are turning to the internet and are looking for solutions beyond WebMD, where they can get answers from doctors in real time. So we have a company called HealthTap, which is a Q&A site where 11,000 doctors in near real time are answering questions, and their answers get rated by other doctors. And then finally, we are seeing a big trend where consumers are going online to find the best doctors who can offer them the best service at the lowest price, and they can go and schedule appointments online. And that's an example of a company, Brighter. So we are big believers in this trend around consumerization of healthcare, around self-pay, and bringing insights through connected devices for consumers to take meaningful actions which can change the way they work, live, and play.
So I'm kind of fascinated with the wearable device movement because it's definitely, with not only Basis has it, there's Fitbit, there's Jawbone has their own, and then they recently just acquired Body Media. So I'm curious, who's going to be the clear winner here? Is there going to be a number of devices, or is there going to be one? Is it the Basis? Which I know, actually, I have a Basis. I tested it out, and it's a really fascinating device.
So I think it's a very early market right now. And as we have seen with devices, right, like it's never going to be a winner-take-all market. If you look at the smartphones, which is a good comparable to make today, iPhone is a major player. Then you have many forms of Android devices, and then you have like Windows who's coming in. So I think there's room for 2 or 3 players. The interesting thing is going to be, what do the big incumbents like Apple and Samsung do in this space? That could change the landscape because they have instant distribution. But I think it's early, and there's room for 2 to 3 players depending on what solutions they offer.
Do you think Apple will go in?
I think they should.
Yeah.
But I would not want them to get in early on so that it gives times to some of these startups to really get scale.
Right. Well, I want to switch to one of our other audience questions. In the mobile space, what are the top 3 verticals that Mayfield wants to invest in? Travel, commerce, healthcare, enterprise?
Sure. So I think we look at it a little bit more broadly. I think there are 3 segments to focus on the mobile sector. The first one is around consumers. The second one is around developers, and the third one is around enterprises. So quickly, in the consumer space, we believe there's opportunity for smart applications. These applications know who you are, what you're doing, when you do, where you do it. And this applies to local, this applies to restaurants, it applies to travel, it applies to productivity apps, it applies to shopping. Second trend is e-commerce and marketplaces. And the third I already mentioned earlier is consumerization of health. As far as the developers are concerned, they're looking for next generation platforms where they can just go and program in JavaScript or in .NET, and automatically their applications come out for the multiple set of devices that exist. And finally, in the enterprise segment, consumers and employees want convenience and choice. They bring their own devices, they bring their own apps, they bring their own cloud. And IT departments want control and centralization. So there is need for security solutions. There is need for next generation of collaboration apps. Many line of business applications are being disrupted with the mobile era. So if I look at it, there are opportunities across 3 broad horizontal segments.
Right.
And then many, many verticals in those that one can go after.
You know, we've talked a lot about enterprise. It's like the hot buzzword these days. But I'm really curious, you know, what are you excited about on consumer mobile? I mean, is there opportunity there?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest opportunities is around marketplaces. And these marketplaces are tending to be more symmetric. They're more peer-to-peer. And they have some special attributes. And I can go into many, many examples, but just a few attributes these have. They're attacking large markets. They are online and offline. Users have high frequency of use on these marketplaces. They have network effects, and they're symmetric. And I wrote an article as a guest post on TechCrunch, which I call the characteristics of these marketplaces is access. There is anywhere, anytime access to these applications. There is curation, there is community, there's efficient commerce, and they're in the flow of the payment. There's simplicity of design, and finally, these are symmetric marketplaces. So we believe mobile marketplaces, especially our peer-to-peer, is a massive opportunity because there's no established incumbents in that market.
Can you give me an example?
Again, I'm biased. One of my favorites is Poshmark. I don't know if you use that application.
I know that application.
Yeah, Poshmark is a marketplace where women can go in and post their closet and other women can buy, and they enable virtual trunk shows.
I know my husband would be very happy if I did this.
Absolutely, he will be, because 70% of the stuff women buy is only used once.
Right.
And what we find with that marketplace, the reason it's symmetric, 70% of the seller are essentially who are buyers. So it's extremely symmetric. You don't need to bring boutiques online. It's people buying and selling on it.
That's great. Well, I want to go to our last question from our readers. Are VCs too focused on shortcuts? So meaning, are they too focused on seeing traction, a founder who's already a friend or a prior entrepreneur, or other notable investors, angel investors already on board? What do you think?
So I think it varies. Clearly, I think there is a trend in consumer where you do want to see traction. You do want to have somebody else do the heavy lifting in general. Whereas when you go to the enterprise sector, they aren't angels. These companies require much more money. So that's where you have to get in early as a VC. And in both these kinds of opportunities, whether it's consumer or enterprise, you need to take a long-term perspective. You need to remember this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Building companies is hard, it takes time, and sometimes require multiple pivots. So essentially it's patience and endurance, and you're running a marathon.
Fab is a great example of that.
Fab is a great example. They went through like a couple of pivots, and they have achieved massive scale today. Similarly, we were investors in 3PAR, one of the largest exits in the storage market. We were investors in that for a decade. So patience is extremely, extremely important to create multi-billion-dollar companies, both for entrepreneurs and VCs.
Do you think patience is something that some VCs lack now?
I think that's a tough question. I don't like criticizing or like commenting on other VCs. I can comment on Mayfield.
Sure.
We take a long-term perspective. We've been in business for 44 years. All my partners and me, we have been entrepreneurs before. And I think you have to take a very long-term view on what you're doing. And if you're short-sighted or if you take shortcuts, you're not going to be able to find those build-to-last companies.
Well, that's a great way to end, because hopefully, we'll be seeing some of those long-term companies stay, as big, iconic companies. I know Fab definitely has that goal in mind. So thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks a lot for having me here.